Big School, Big Bully: The Influence of School Enrollment Size on Adolescent Bully Victimization. To begin, I thought it'd be useful to look at an example of bullying in the wild, and this clip is taken from the movie A Christmas Story.
Listen, jerk. When I tell you to come, you better come. What, are you gonna cry now? Come on, cry, baby, cry for me. Come on, cry.
Deep in the recesses.
All right, adolescent bullying. It's something that most of us are familiar with. So what is it exactly? Well, the literature defines bullying as exposure to negative actions by another or others over time. This includes things like teasing, name-calling, pushing, shoving, tripping, you name it. Importantly, there's two factors distinguishing bullying from other sorts of aggressive behavior in middle school or high school. One of those things is repetition. So there's got to be a certain frequency to it, and there also has to be a perceived power imbalance between the aggressor and the one being aggressed. Typical reasons for bullying can include things like physical appearance, race, gender, disability, religion, sexual orientation. For the purposes of my research, though, I wanted to look beyond the more commonly looked at factors of bullying onto school-wide level variables that may be at play. Inevitably, I came across school enrollment size as a potentially interesting influencer on bully frequency. Looking at the statistics, we see that for students aged 12 to 18 across the United States, 21% of those have experienced bullying. This has all sorts of negative impacts, including a decline in mental health, poor academic attendance and achievement, increased drug use, decreased self-esteem, and an increase of unwanted or negative behaviors. All in all, those who are bullied are 2.2 times more likely to have suicidal ideation, and they're also 2.6 times more likely to attempt suicide. So a previous study by Klein and Cornell took a look at the influence of enrollment size on bully victimization, and what they found was that teachers from larger schools perceived more bullying and teasing taking place compared to the perceptions of teachers from smaller schools. Interestingly, that same study found that self-reported rates of bully victimization was not correlated with enrollment size, and that, in fact, enrollment size was negatively correlated with bullying. What I wanted to do with this study was to expand on the second finding of the Klein and Cornell study, and I hypothesized that enrollment size will impact bully victimization rates, with larger schools experiencing less bullying than smaller schools. And I also predicted that these findings would hold when controlling for the covariate of school level. And the two levels there are middle school and high school. We had 650 participants altogether. They were middle schoolers and high schoolers with the age range of 12 to 18, all from the United States. 56% were female, 44% were male, with a mean age of 14. The survey data I used was from the National Crime Victimization Survey, School Crime Supplement, the 2015 version. All questions were answered by students either face-to-face or over the phone, and the dependent variable that I used was taken from an item called bully victimization frequency. It was coded on a 4-point scale, where 1 represented once or twice this school year, 2 represented once or twice a month, 3 represented once or twice a week, and 4 represented almost every day. the school enrollment size was originally coded into 6 categories, and I recoded them into 3, with 1 being less than 600, 2 being 600 to 1500, and 3 being 1500 or more. I ran a one-way ANOVA for my first analysis, and this was to compare the effect of school enrollment size on bullying, and a significant influence of enrollment size on bullying was indeed found. I also ran some post-hoc analyses with Tukey HSD, and here I found a significant difference between large schools and small schools, as well as large schools and medium-sized schools. I, however, did not find a significant difference between small and medium-sized schools. We can see this represented here with a bar chart. We can see that the small and medium-sized schools have around the same rates of bullying, while the larger-sized schools have considerably less. For my second analysis, I ran an ANCOVA, and here what I did was control for school level, and I did this because I thought that because high schoolers tend to have more students than middle schoolers, perhaps our difference in bullying can actually be explained by the different amount of students in high school compared to those in middle school. So we ran a one-way ANCOVA, and we found a significant influence of school level on bully victimization frequency. That is, bullying took place to a higher degree in middle schools than they did in high schools. And then after controlling for school level, there was no longer a significant influence of enrollment size on bully victimization frequency. Taking a look at the bar chart for our ANCOVA, we can see some similarities to the bar chart we looked at for our ANOVA, where the smaller school and medium-sized school look to be about the same size, with our larger school being smaller. The big difference here is our standard error bar for our larger schools are now intersecting with the standard error bars for our smaller schools and our medium-sized schools. So we can't say that they are actually different. The final analysis I ran was a Pearson correlation, looking at the 3 different variables of interest. And what I found was that there was a significant positive correlation between school enrollment size and school level. That is to say, those in high school had more kids than those in middle school. I also found a significant negative correlation between school enrollment size and bullying. So those with larger numbers of students had more bullying. This mirrors the findings that we had with our ANOVA. And I also found that there was a significant negative correlation between school level and bully victimization frequency. High schools have more bullying than do middle schools. So what does it all mean? Well, we can say that bullying at small schools is at the same level as bullying at medium-sized schools is. We can also say that bullying at large schools is less than bullying at small and medium-sized schools. We also found that bullying at high schools is less than bullying at middle schools. The big takeaway here, though, is that although enrollment size was a significant factor on bullying frequency, this difference may be due to high schoolers who happen to be in larger schools being bullied less than middle schoolers, which happen to tend to be smaller schools. Combining these two, we can definitely say bullying at large high schools is going to be less than bullying at small middle schools. So revisiting the hypotheses that I proposed, we can indeed support our first hypothesis, which was that bullying at larger schools is smaller than bullying at smaller size schools. However, after we control for school level, this finding no longer holds, and so we had to refute my second hypothesis. A few limitations that this study had. There was quite a bit of variance in which questions were answered on the original survey. Future studies should utilize a more simplified format where participants answer the majority of the questions. Our bully frequency measure was also pretty imprecise. future studies could ask participants to recall bully victimization events weekly or monthly, and this would give us a little more precise data. And finally, we had a pretty narrow measure of bully victimization. Future studies could look at other salient measures of bullying outside of frequency, such as severity or impact. Ultimately, our study suggests that it may actually not be useful for students experiencing a high frequency of bully victimization to switch schools based merely on enrollment size. If they're switching based on school level, though, let's say from a small school to a larger high school, that could be a worthwhile endeavor. All of this is to say, though, it's still useful to look at environmental contributors to bullying. While enrollment size was not determined to be a significant contributor, investigating school urbanicity, region, or school level may still be informative and ultimately useful. And I'm going to leave you guys with a reminder that bullying does not stop in high school, and it persists even into old age, retirement, and beyond. Thank you for listening to my presentation.